आपने ओवर द इयर्स किस तरीके की आपने बातें सुनी है लोगों से that how maybe Hina has impacted them?
I think there's no, that's a weight we all carry, knowing that, for me, just knowing that my mother was the last heroine of a film that he had conceived or thought of, I think is a massive honor and pressure as well in itself. I have my own memories growing up where Chintu uncle was very, actually, in certain situations which I don't want to mention right now, which personal scene, but he stood up for me.
There's a legacy that she has. Lata Mangeshkar sang for her,
Yeah.
and classic song like say for example, "Main Hoon Khush Rangina." I think it's a brilliant song.
If it's little learnings my mom learned from that time, from the people she worked with, and वो मुझे सिखाई गई हैं, obviously it's had an influence on me as well.
Have you interacted with Ranbir by any chance?
I haven't. I think met once, but not really, no. I have friends who are friends with him, but I don't know.
Rishi ji
Yeah.
and Abu ji, they always Rishi ji he was always vocal about it. He always spoke about
So
where he came from.
I've obviously he is my father, and he lives over there, and there will always be a respect to the other place. मैं तेरा हुआ जा रहा हूँ, बस तेरा हुआ जा रहा।
Hi, कैसे हैं आप?
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
बिल्कुल ठीक, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह।
So tell me, how do we begin this? Like, you're multi-talented, but what is it that is really occupying your passion right now? Is it music? Is it acting? What
I
exactly is it?
think I think a little bit of acting and music. Past 10 months have mostly just been music because the acting assignment that I had finished in December 2021. So this
Mhm.
year it's mostly been music, and a lot of stuff that is some stuff that's yet to come. Those की वो आप जानते हैं, it's the production process, making it and all that. तो वो
Mhm.
चल रहा था, कुछ पहले की चीजें थी which were releasing, and then hopefully in the next few months jumping into some more acting stuff.
Great. So now you work with Sajal Ali, and I think she's this huge sensation. And
Absolutely, yeah.
how's the experience?
I think it was amazing. I got to learn a lot from her, and I think she, more than anything else, was very welcoming, very nurturing on set, and didn't make me feel like I was a newcomer. And she was somebody who has had so much experience. So I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, now the sort of lineage that you have, I think acting and music is something that comes very naturally to you. What is
So
what
I
is
don't know.
your
I don't want to cut you. I don't know if you remember this. We did an interview when I was like 13 or 14.
yeah.
In Bombay a long time ago, and I'm seeing you now after like good 10 years, 10, 12 years. I just remembered.
No, I definitely remember that. I
Yeah, yeah.
definitely remember that. But what is it that you feel that you've added to the illustrious lineage that you have?
So the truth is, I think any child in my position, if
Mm,
we take on the burden of feeling that you're trying to continue a lineage, I think it's too much,
mm,
and you can't really do anything in that. So I don't
mm,
really think about it. I try not to think about that much. I try to keep in my mind that there's a standard
mm,
that my parents have set, and there are people who love them, who have a very high expectation of, in some ways, from me when they see me, because obviously they compare. But for me to operate, I'm 28 years old. My parents' careers are significantly longer than my life. You know,
of course.
so ये सोचना कि all I can do is try and give my best and continue a standard that they've set to the best of my abilities. I don't think I'm competing with them, or I'm trying to even take on a continual lineage. As long as मैं कोई भोंगिया नहीं मारूं और ढंग से काम कर लूं, I think that would be a thing, because they've had an everlasting impression on the industries, whether it's acting, whether it's music.
लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल जैसे अब जब आपकी आवाज हम लोग सुनते हैं सो वो उसमें एक मखसूस सा स्टाइल आपका खुद का है बिकॉज आई थिंक एनीवन एंड एवरीवन वुड सी दैट इन टर्म्स ऑफ be it the music compositions or the tonality of what obviously Adnan has. But आपका एक कहीं ना कहीं एक मखसूस अपना खुद का एक स्टाइल है. How important was it for you to create your own style?
Firstly, thank you for noticing that.
Mm,
The thing is, sir, I don't. When I was younger, the truth is, I would shy away from doing anything that would sound like my dad's, just because I would feel कि maybe comparison raw होगा. But
mm,
I think I've become comfortable with it in terms of he is my father, she is my mother. I'm not going to run from that reality, you know. I
mm,
look like them in some ways, and sometimes very much so. My expressions, you know, being औलाद होने से आप भाग नहीं सकते. And I think it
mm,
would be a mistake on my part to do that. So I have definitely tried to be find an honest voice of my own, and not I've never sat at the piano or in the studio and been like, I'm going to try and replicate something my father's done. I've tried to do something that is my own. अब उसमें से अगर एक originality नजर आना शुरू होती है, that's a huge achievement for me, honestly. And if you are noticing it or any listener is noticing it, maybe that just came from the fact that I wasn't trying to imitate, because I
mm.
don't think it would be right for me to imitate in any way.
Correct. And I think जिस तरीके की आपकी आपका education background है, I believe you've done your graduation from Tennessee, I believe.
So I studied there. I did dropped out of college, but I did study there. I spent some time there.
Okay. But when you're just moving away from a comfort zone and you're living on your own, does that teach you anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Tennessee is in some ways mid, somewhat west of America. So the people are very nice and simple people. So in that sense, it was a fun experience. I have some good friends from there. लेकिन the biggest I think change was living in an environment जहाँ का music मेरे सुने हुए music से बहुत मुख्तलिफ है. You know, um, uh, because when you go to like cosmopolitan cities, whether it's New York, LA, London, Dubai, you have all kinds of music that is present, right? But जब आप किसी के बिल्कुल होता ना कि गढ़ में जाते हैं किसी जगह के, तो वहाँ उतना एक metropolitan type environment नहीं होता. You have their music, which is majority country music, somewhat soft pop kind of thing, but अंग्रेजी music. You know, आपको दूर दूर तक हमारे साउथ एशियन साज या चीजें सुनने को नहीं मिलती. So that obviously had a big impression to see and live in an environment that was very, very different to mine. Sometimes we take for granted that we wake up every morning, कहीं टीवी पे अपना कोई गाना चल रहा होता है, अपने things we're familiar with. So being
Hmm.
completely cut off from that, I think obviously took a toll on, in a good way as well, on my understanding of music.
Right. So ये South Asian influence आपके लिए कितना important that to have that level of जिसको कहते हैं कि मिट्टी की महक होना and एक सौंधापन होना, वो
The
आपके लिए कितना
extremely
जरूरी था आपकी म्यूजिक में?
for me, it's extremely important. I think that's in some ways all we have. You know, what differentiates us from any other music artist in the world, and that I think is where we belong to. And those things are true to us. I remember uh, एक वाकया आपको सुनाता हूँ that happened a few months ago actually. I was in the studio and to each their own, if people have certain ideas. Like you will find in a lot of my songs, I try and use as many Eastern instruments as I can. चाहे वो sarangi
Mm,
हो, तबला ढोलक हो, शहनाई हो, etc. And that for me is very important. There's a love for them, and I want to use them. So I remember I was in the studio once, and uh, another a colleague said to me कि ओ तुम हर गाने में तबला ढोलक क्यों यूज करते हो? And I felt a bit, okay, maybe
mm,
I am being repetitive. Why am I doing it? And then I went and I spoke to
mm,
my father. I remember asking him कि डैड उसने इस बंदे ने ये बोला, मे बी मैं एक ही चीज बार बार कर रहा हूँ. एंड ही इज लाइक कि गोरे म्यूजिशियन से तो कोई नहीं कहता कि हर गाने में ड्रम्स क्यों है. यू नो
mm.
वो उसका साज है, ये हमारा साज है. एंड दैट रियली स्टक विद मी. हर अंग्रेजी गाने में गिटार बजता है, वो उनका
Correct, of course.
इंस्ट्रूमेंट है. ऐसे तो नहीं है ना, we'll have barely ever hear a song that doesn't have a guitar playing in it. Majority other than like electronic genres and stuff. But so you don't know questions are asked there. So why are we asking questions? Is it because we are in some ways not, we are more Western influenced and we believe that is cooler and ours isn't? So for me, that was a big reality check that he gave me, and since then I'm just like, हर गाने में होंगे, ये हमारी चीज है. And for me, it's very important. I think there is massive room of innovation where how can we use the say our instruments, our tools in a modern, contemporary way for younger audiences. Maybe इसमें ये we have to take credit from what the West has done, where they've evolved constantly. So today they've evolved. A younger audience likes listening to those instruments. There are new ways of playing, new ways of writing and arranging. We should definitely innovate our instruments in that, but they are our instruments. They are our identity, and for me, that is very important to have that imprint of our culture in my music.
लिरिक्स का क्या 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 रोल है आपके आपके लिए?
तो सब कुछ ही है. मतलब
हम्म.
I think the pillars of any music, there's melody, composition, lyrics, arrangement. They all go hand in hand. कोई one man show नहीं है. अगर आपको मेरा कोई गाना पसंद आया, उसमें उतना ही लिरिसिस्ट का हाथ है, उतना ही म्यूजिक प्रोड्यूसर का हाथ है जितना मेरा है. And obviously singer as well, whether I've sung it, whether I've written it, or whatever it is, but there these are pillars जिसपे वो इमारत या वो बिल्डिंग खड़ी खड़ी होती है. One is
Right.
not there, it falls.
Right, because there are many school of thoughts when it comes to say popular music or music in general that certain जो लोग होते हैं वो सुर को बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस देते हैं कि अगर आप थोड़ा बहुत भी कहीं इधर उधर अगर आप कहीं हिले तो they can be like literally brutal, but at the same time there's so many other artists as well who literally value the written word and their approaches कि that जो हमें हम जिस रास्ते पे चलेंगे वो हमें जो रिटन वर्ड है वो हमको गाइड करेगा दैट कि क्या हम महसूस कर रहे हैं, क्या उसका इमोशन है, क्या
जी.
एक जज्बात हैं जिसको कि हम कन्वे करना चाह रहे हैं एंड वो उसके साथ में वो बहने की कोशिश करते हैं. आपके लिए क्या इम्पोर्टेंट
So, so if you're asking me about my process of when making a song, it's been different each time. Either there's been a melody first, then lyrics have come, and so on and so forth. But or the other way around, or sometimes there's an arrangement idea and we've composed something to that. But I've come to learn now, I'm still very early on in my career, that it's not one or the other, you know. They all have to fall in place. That doesn't mean कि अगर एक गाना है तो उसमें बहुत ही मुखलिस शायरी होनी होगी. It can be simple as well, but the written word will have to be done. But at the same time, the technique of singing or the musicality holds a certain importance. I do think our audiences, even the younger ones, have been exposed to some very, very great composers and singers in the past 5-6 decades, जो अभी भी हम सुनते हैं, तो अच्छा
है?
म्यूजिक सबने किसी ना किसी पॉइंट पे सुना हुआ है, अच्छे आर्टिस्ट को सुना हुआ है. तो चाहे उसको टेक्निकली पता ना हो, लेकिन उनको अच्छे बुरे की पहचान की हमेशा they will know. So for me, therefore, keeping all of those aspects in mind is always very important. And obviously, I've also grown up in a household where the arts and the technique behind them is taught was at least drilled into me. कि what is important. So I don't think it's either or. I don't think I wouldn't agree with somebody who says कि नहीं सिर्फ written word और vibe अच्छी होनी चाहिए बाकी भाड़ में जाए. It has to, and I without taking saying anyone, but like there are people who believe that today. I just think our culture or our listeners aren't like that. They want a blend of everything.
Right. Like, I've spoken to Adnan many times and उन्होंने हमेशा बताया कि किस तरीके से बहुत बड़े बड़े उस्तादों से उन्होंने सीखा है and
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल.
I believe Shiv Kumar Sharma and so
Yeah,
many others
yeah,
actually
yeah.
and he always gives them so much of credit and so much of respect for them.
Yes, yes.
आपका किस तरीके के आपकी यादें हैं, किस तरीके के influences because I'm sure that जब ये सब चीजें आपके आसपास अगर सुनाई देती होंगी तो definitely उसका impact तो होता होगा मेरे ख्याल से.
Of course, sir. So my ustad has been so there've been two people. There's been Ustad Nasiruddin Sami Sahab, who has taught me,
Hmm.
along with and then who is also further my education has been his son Ustad Uruj Sami. So they have been a big part of my music learning. I continue to learn from them, and they are my teachers. So that is definitely there. I think something that I learned from my father was the fact that having solid teachers is crucially important. And that for me is, and the learning doesn't stop. He's an example of this where the innovation that he brought to keyboard playing, to music at his time, was because he studied from very, very good teachers, and obviously his own talent as well. But he, as you said, rightly said, he has never shied away from publicly acknowledging who taught him. And I think that is something that he passed on to me as
Yeah.
well.
Right. Right. And I think ये एक मेरे जहन में एक सवाल आ रहा है कि जैसे so I've lived that era when when we saw the entire news around Hina, for example.
Yeah.
You know what really happened, how it was, and what all happened, and how Zebaji was discovered, and what a huge news it became, and the movie came in, and बहुत से I think जो चीजें होती हैं वो बहुत हद तक लगता है कि I think जो जख्म होते हैं उनको मरहम के तरीके से बहुत बार फिल्में काम कर सकती हैं. So and that was one of those films that it was hugely talked about. Um, आपने over the years किस तरीके के आप आपने बातें सुनी है लोगों से that how maybe Hina has impacted them and what it really means to them.
So, I think I'll start from within the house. I think Dabu uncle, Chintu uncle had a big role to play in my mom's life, shaping her as an actor, shaping her as somebody who looked at the film industry. I think she always says that she was very lucky that she got to very early on in her career work with such a tremendous family, and learn from them and be around them. And then obviously the honor of being in Raj Kapoor Saab's last film, I think there's no, that's a weight we all carry, knowing that, for me, just knowing that my mother was the last heroine of a film that he had conceived or thought of, I think is a massive honor and pressure as well in itself. So I think whatever I heard was the generosity of the family, of how loving they were to her. And then I have my own memories growing up where Chintu uncle was very, actually, in certain situations, which don't want to mention right now, which personal scene, but he stood up for me, and he was very, very kind to me. And I have very, very good memories with that. And I think all of it stemmed from the Hina days. That relationship, that
Of
tie.
course,
He
of course.
he always felt a sense of ownership and love towards um, uh, my mother. So does Dabu uncle till today, and that continuously fed on to like me being her child, and obviously my father now I think has his own relationship with them. So I think within the house it was there. It was a very big impression. बातें होती थी उन दिनों की अभी भी होती हैं, stuff she learned from there. And then when you go outside and you see people like yourself who were around that time and saw that whole impact of Hina, I think we can't forget that that time was very different to ours. Uh, when I look at it, not as my mother, just that technically she was an actress from Pakistan, from Quetta, being cast in this massive film, going there. I can't imagine what the environment must have been like, what it would have been like at that time. आज हम लोग छोटी छोटी चीजें करते हैं border के आसपास, stuff like that, and it becomes a big deal just to imagine that level of a project. So I think these are special moments in time which hold their significance, and they'll be there. And they don't happen very often. And I think I'm grateful that in some way I'm distantly part of something that special. You can
Definitely,
tell me probably
because
more
that
what
was
it was like. I'm curious to
no,
know.
I'll tell you,
Uh,
because that was an era of film magazines, and I still remember. I think Zebaji, I think she handled herself with a lot of grace and dignity. I clearly remember that. It was something which was not like a uh, many times the way the film stories they used to be, and I think Raj Kapoor Saab was she was his discovery after all, and he was extremely protective about her. And I think so. There's a legacy that she has. Lata Mangeshkar sang for her,
Yeah.
and classic song. Like say for example, "Main Hoon Khush Rangina." I think it's a brilliant song.
Yeah.
So I think she is definitely part of the history. Like one film,
Yeah.
but I think she'll always be remembered in more ways than one.
Absolutely. As I said, I think वो कुछ अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से खुदा की तरफ से कुछ moments होते हैं time में, and they hold a certain place, and they have a big impact on many people, and I'm including those people who from somewhere on the sides I also got impacted by that. Even like if it's little learnings my mom learned from that time, from the people she worked with, and वो मुझे सिखाई गई हैं. Obviously it's had an influence on me as well. So
Right.
I'm
So
grateful.
so have you interacted with Ranbir by any chance?
I haven't. I think met once, but not really. No. I have friends who are friends with him, but I don't know.
Right.
I
And
have
it is
fond
so
memories
it's
with
so
his father, but
mm,
not
it's
with
so
him.
ironical because I think Raj Kapoor Saab himself was originally from say Pakistan and the entire family, and they've Prithviraj Kapoor Saab he had I think a very strong affinity with the with the region per se. वो तो खैर बाद में जो चीजें हुई सो हुई लेकिन I think do you know we find it ironical you are a kid of say 90s for example when you hear all these stories do you find it ironical that it's these are just regions for example and people are born in certain regions they have certain roots over there and they will always have certain element of affinity with those regions and their roots in a way
I think
which even
there's
Rishi ji carried. Rishi ji
yeah.
and Abu ji, they always Rishi ji he was always vocal about it. He always spoke about
So
where he came from.
I do think a few things. Like for instance, there is no denying that this was all one region not very long ago. You know, because in the
Mm,
grand scheme of things, जब आप history में देखते हैं, तो it's not a very long time. I understand people have very emotional associations now with both places, and जो भी political things I'm not in a position मुझे इतने इल्म भी नहीं है कि I comment on it. But what I do feel is obviously I ask myself this question sometimes that I I'm in a very interesting position. I've grown up in Pakistan. I associate myself from here. I've lived here most of my life, grown up here with my mother. And then I have my father who's chosen to be in India, and that is his choice. So I do feel that there is some greater purpose by God, which is why I'm in this position. Because I've obviously, he is my father and he lives over there, and there will always be a respect to the other place. And I have good friends over there. I've spent a good amount of time there. So I do feel that maybe there is somewhere in the future, there is some purpose of why, there is this thing. But I just think that I do think that the people making these decisions have to be civilians and human beings, not unfortunately politicians, who
mm,
may have vested interests in making people fight in unfortunately atrocities that happen. So I do think that there needs to be the common man has to make the decision. For instance, आप देखें कि मतलब इंडिया पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट मैच से बड़ा कोई इवेंट होता ही नहीं है. आपकी बड़ी से बड़ी फिल्म आ रही हो, कुछ भी हो रहा हो, अगर पाकिस्तान इंडिया का मैच है तो that's it. Everything stops. I'm sure it's the same over there and over here as well. So there is this
mm.
camaraderie and this heightened love that is there, and I think let's hope for the best in the future. That's all we can. A more peaceful future.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think the way the music and movies, for example, the way they tend to just bring up, like say Pakistani dramas, for example, Pakistani
Yeah.
dramas are so popular in India, and same way as Bollywood is extremely popular in Pakistan. I was speaking to someone yesterday, and so she happens to be a journalist and from Pakistan, and she just went on and on and on about so many films and actors. So the level of involvement which is there as far as
Yeah, yeah,
especially the art
absolutely.
arts is concerned. I was speaking to this the singer called Assis Kaur. You must be obviously
Yes, yes,
knowing
yes.
fantastic singer. So she's a huge like a Noor Jahan fan and like a Abida Parveen fan, and so Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. So she sang like in my interview recently, and in fact वो उनको रूहानी तौर पे उनके आवाज ने उनके गानों ने उनको उनको तरबियत दी है. And that's what she says. So it is fascinating how these things they are so conjoined together.
Absolutely.
And
It's very,
I'm sure.
बिल्कुल,
Mm,
it's just, I find this in my own small way that the amount of, you put out a song and the amount, हमारे पास अब तो everything is digitized, so we have like streaming numbers coming and we have all of that.
mm,
And you see the amount of people that are listening to it from places you never think, you know,
mm,
you think even, so you just realize how I think जुबान का बहुत बड़ा हाथ है इसमें.
mm,
I remember when Ishkila, the drama I did, that was running. The amount of messages you get from India, from different parts of the world, honestly speaking. I
mm,
don't, as I said earlier, I don't think we live in such a limiting world anymore. I do think that it's a very very different thing, and we're maybe on the cusp of some sort of big change where people decide and choose for themselves what they want to watch and who they want to
mm,
watch. And वो जो पहले होता था ना कि एक बैनर या एक स्टूडियो या एक लेबल एक ऑडियंस को इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकता था काफी हद तक कि किसको वो सुने या देखें, you know. I don't think that level of influence exists anymore
that's
today.
amazing. No, definitely. मैं आपसे एक एक मैं आपसे सवाल मैं आपसे और ये पूछना चाहता था कि that um, अक्सर ऐसा होता है कि that children who are from say broken families उनके तो certain उनके perceptions होते हैं वो थोड़े से at times bitter हो जाते हैं. I'm seeing that you have a very healthy way of looking um, at both your parents, your father as well as your mother, which I find like a very healthy way of looking at it. And somewhere maybe I think you must have done your thinking, and I'm sure that your parents must have helped you as well in terms of coming to terms with the fact that look at life maybe in a broader perspective. This is just like my thought. How important was it to for you to just understand the predicament of maybe your parents, and how you have come to have that I think genuine respect for both of them.
Um, Firstly, thank you for noticing that.
Mm,
As far as I think I did go through my phase of bitterness when I was younger. I think it's a
mm,
natural process. और उससे भागना भी नहीं चाहिए. I went through that. Obviously, when you're younger, you don't understand why, right? You don't understand कि ऐसा क्यों है. So I think when I firstly I realized that, I came from a family where my parents decided not to be together. I have spent individual time with both of them, जिससे मुझे, no child, a child knows their parents very well, right? So you knew why they were not compatible. तो वो एक rationale आ जाता है कि it's better for them to be happy uh, individually than to be in a unhappy union, for lack of a better example. So that was one thing that after a while I understood, living with them individually. I think neither of them badmouthed each other. To me, I think I would say this to any parent. Today, divorce is a fairly accepted concept globally. And I think within that, something they did that was very exemplary was the fact that they never badmouthed each other. My mom never said stuff about my dad that could influence me, neither did my dad when I lived with him. And I think uh, that played a big role in me forming my own opinions of both of them. Do you get what I'm saying?
that's
मेरे
amazing. That's
opinion, and I think obviously then becoming a father myself put a lot of things into perspective. I understood what it meant to be a father or a parent, and so you become a little lighter on them. And then finally, you also realize that your parents are your parents, but they're also people who, being in the field they belong to, they're also the people's people, उनकी एक ownership दुनिया के लिए भी है. And that obviously changes you as well. They're not just parents, and I accepted that at a certain point. So there's no hard thing. My mom obviously has raised me, and after God, I owe everything to her. But also my, in many ways, my dad as well. I love him, I respect him, and we have a healthy relationship today.
Right. Okay, and you married I think rather early. You have two kids. ये भी अक्सर देखने में आता है that children from say from broken families they are really particular about their kids. They go out of the way to make sure that the kids have a very balanced and a healthy I think environment to grow in so that whatever maybe level of जो एक वैक्यूम उन्होंने एक्सपीरियंस किया होता है वो चाहते हैं कि उनके पेरेंट्स उनके उनके बच्चे जो हैं वो एक्सपीरियंस ना करें क्या ऐसा कह सकते हैं कि that you're so particular about your kids maybe because
I
of
think
because of
several
that reason.
things that have, yeah, I think you're right about that. Several things that in my own journey, when I see how um, my children, their mother, how we have, yeah, having our own experiences, how we decided to co-parent the children, how we decide to approach it all is obviously to not make the same mistakes maybe your parents made. As you said, bitterness I think goes away from the fact that जब आप उनको एक पॉइंट होता है जहाँ पेरेंट्स आपके लिए सब कुछ होते हैं, फरिश्ते होते हैं, फिर आप उनको एज एन इंसान देखना शुरू करते हैं एंड यू रियलाइज कि अच्छा ये भी इंसान ही थे एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट यू say that okay unse galtiyan kuch hui and I don't want to make the same mistakes. So I do think that a certain level of hyper analysis or microscopic analysis on children is put in because you obviously don't want mistakes repeated, and I'm very grateful that I have a support structure around me that further helps that, and will obviously point me in the right direction whenever I'm, you know, doing things. Misal ke taur pe, if I'm spending too long working, I know okay, I will get a call saying from my mom saying, "Have you spoken to the kids?" You know, immediately. It won't happen कि 4 महीने तक I will be within a day. If I've stuff like that. So I have a strong check and balance that goes on, and even within myself as well. So वो होता है, and I think it's natural कि you want to obviously do the best that you can.
Which is amazing, which is
Definitely.
amazing. All right, so Adhan, I'd like to end this interview. Maybe can we have like a medley of a few of your songs?
Okay, a medley. So, thinking which ones. Any one particular one that you would want?
No, it's entirely your choice.
Okay, so I'll do a line from मैं तेरा and a line from एक लम्हा, if that's okay.
Whatever you want,
Um,
whatever you want.
okay. मैं तेरा हुआ जा रहा हूँ, बस तेरा हुआ जा रहा, तेरी आंखों में जो डूबूं, तेरी बाहों में जाऊं, सारी घड़ियां रोक के सोचूं इस कदर मैं तेरा हुआ जा रहा हूँ, बस
Fantastic,
तेरा हुआ जा रहा मैं तेरा.
fantastic. And there was another song
Yes,
that you
we
sang.
can do एक लम्हा.
Hmm.
तेरी दूरियां मुझ पे गुनाह है, दिल चाहत इसकी गवाह है, मेरी दुनिया तेरी पनाह है, यही इश्क ने मुझसे कहा है, तुझसे बिछड़ के बाखुदा मैं यहाँ जी ना सकूंगा एक लम्हा, आराम आता है दीदार से तेरे, मिट जाते हैं सारे गम, है ये दुआ कि तुझे देखते देखते ही निकल जाए दम. Something like that. बस.
Fantastic. Azan, lovely talking to you, and I think you display amazing maturity for your age, and I think I'm really looking forward to all your future ventures, both in terms of acting and obviously of your music as well. And yes, just for being an ambassador, I think for peace in a way and what you stand for. So
So
all the
thank you
best
so
and
much for
thank
having
you
me,
for
and
talking to me.
it was an honor to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and take care. Take care.
Take
Have a
care,
good
sir.
day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.